Hi, John.
Hi.
That thing you said right before I started recording? Yes, I recall. I think I published you and Gypsy many years ago, and I transposed two letters. Do you,
Everybody does. Everybody does Yarmouth. I don't know why, but everybody does that.
well, good. I'm not alone. So it wasn't just my dyslexia, it's just something other people do too. But do you remember Gypsy from way back when?
God.
It's okay if you
No.
don't. I mean,
Th-
it's 45 years ago or something. It doesn't matter. But I think
Well,
we,
I'm sure I have a copy here. You've seen my library. I'm sure
oh,
I have a
yeah.
copy here because I keep strict files of every magazine I've been published in. So I'm
Wow.
sure I have a copy.
You are so organized.
I was lucky when I was starting out. I made it a point. I had this stupid little black notebook where I started keeping track of my readings, date and place. I gave up on that, but I also at the same time started keeping track of every magazine I was in, the issue, etc. So that's why to this day I know exactly how many pieces I've had published, which is now reaching close to 4,000. So
Wow.
I've been around a long time.
Yeah, I remember appearing in magazines with you in the 80s. It's possible in the late 70s, but 80s
Yep.
for sure.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I used to keep track of where I sent things and all that. I used to be good at that. Now, I've got piles and piles and piles, and I don't know where some of it is. Well, good for you.
Well, thank you.
Well, okay, so you've been writing for decades and decades. What got you started writing?
I've been writing, publishing for 56 years. What got me started writing, and I tell this story all the time, is I was too short for the basketball team, too small for the football team, and it was the only way I could get to meet girls. So I started writing.
Really? That's a lie, or is that a joke? Really?
No, that's a true story.
So, when did you actually start getting things published?
Right around 1970. I was right in this. Well, you too. Yeah, I'm sure smack dab in the middle of the Mimeo revolution, and
Mm.
that's where I cut my teeth. In fact, somebody was talking to me the other day about uh, why do I write so much and why do I publish so much? And growing up when we did, being exposed to the Mimeo magazines as we were. Now let me back up for people who don't know. Back in the day, 70s, 80s, anyone who could afford a $300 hand crank Mimeo machine could start a magazine. Now those Mimeo magazines, you could run off 100, 200, 300 copies. Anything more than that, and the things started looking really crappy. So most magazines only had a print run of 2 or 300 copies. And so when you published it in a magazine with 200 people reading your work, it wasn't getting around very much. So you had to write more, you had to submit elsewhere, you had to submit to more magazines. Uh, it got you in the habit of writing every day, and it made you get good real fast.
Well, did you ever have your own magazine as an editor and publisher?
I did. I had two actually. One called Canto, and one called Etc. And again, they were little stupid little Mimeo magazines. Um, Interestingly, now this was back in the early days of my magazines, which are now both kept on in archives at Brown University.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my magazine, the first real name to contact me was Gerald Lachlan.
Mm.
And Lachlan, even back then, was a bit of a big deal. And for having someone like Lachlan write to me, that that was big. That got me going. And Lachlan, he would write Now, like I said, he was a big deal, but this man would write me these long, conversational, typed out 4, 5, 6 page letters, which I have somewhere in my files, talking about, I should know this person or he could give my name to that person. And Lachlan kind of built up my magazine by having his associates send stuff to me. And that kindness, that way of nurturing and encouraging a young writer really impressed me. And to this day, I try to return the favor and nurture and encourage young writers that I encounter.
That's wonderful. Also, Lachlan was that way with me as well. I also
Yeah.
did 2 or 3 chapbooks for him. He was generous and kind. And in turn, I think that I helped promote a lot of people myself, though it's different these days.
Oh, yeah.
It's more instant in a way.
Yep.
But yeah, that there's some satisfaction in helping others as well.
It's interesting. I had an early novel published, and I flew out to California to do some readings and promotions. And my then publisher, Apple Zaba Press, run by Hubert Lloyd, uh, in fact, the same time my first book with Apple Zaba Press came out, Hubert Lloyd published the first book by Billy Collins. So, and Billy Collins went on to some really big things, but we shared the same publisher for a time. And when I went out there, Hubert was working a day job in the bookstore at the Long Beach University, California State University in Long Beach, and he he put Lachlan in charge of keeping me entertained, and he took me out and we shot pool, and he took me to I forget the name of the bar, but we spent a lot of time in that bar, and it was a great night. Gave we read in Long Beach, and again, things go back to Lachlan and him
Mhm.
showing me the way to handle yourself.
Well, tell me something about that novel that you mentioned. Like what was it about when you wrote it? Is it anywhere available? Maybe in some kind of archives or rare book?
Probably in some archives. It's one of those things. When I started writing, I wanted to be the next Jack Kerouac, as everybody from that time did. I even went so far as to I got myself a roll of teletype paper, just like my hero Jack Kerouac, and I shoved it in the typewriter and started typing. And since I'm not a very good to this day typer, typing with 2 fingers, and I wanted to get fast, I wouldn't hit the shift key to get capitals. So the whole book was written in one straight shot, all in lowercase. And when I sent it off to Hubert, Hubert liked the fact that it was in lowercase, and he published it that way. I was stupid. I thought, editors will take care of things and take care of punctuation and handle all that for you. But Hubert liked that. He published the book with the lowercase, including the lowercase personal pronoun I. And of the few reviews that came out about that book, uh, to show you why I don't always believe reviews, one of the reviewers commented on my use of the lowercase personal pronoun I to illustrate the diminishing role of the individual in modern society.
Well, that works.
And it was just me with my 2 fingers.
Not
So,
pushing the shift key.
yes, exactly.
Well, what was the
So,
name of that said novel?
uh, that was called Coming Home. Uh, it was a poorly written novel, but I was young. I was young, and I was wise enough and smart enough to move on to poetry. The only thing that my 2 really bad novels taught me was that I'm not a novelist. That my strength is in short form. I'm a sprinter. I'm not a long distance runner.
Ah, yeah, I think I am too. Well, you also did at least one children's book.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Do you happen to have it close by?
Let's see. I should have pulled it out ahead of time for you, but
Well,
do I
just
have one? No, I don't have one right here. If you can see my books behind me,
yeah.
uh, I try to keep everything organized here, but I don't have one pulled out for you right now. One of the children's books, but that was an attempt. My then publisher, Epic Rights Press, out of Canada. I was lucky enough; they published 12 of my books, and Epic Rights Press wanted to expand my audience, which I'm a writer of poetry, so I have almost no audience. So he wanted to expand my audience. And he said, "Why don't you try a children's book?" I already told him I'm not a novelist. So we had two dogs at the time, Phoebe and Ito, two of the sweetest little Cocker Spaniels you ever want to run into. And I got off the phone with the publisher and I went upstairs to my wife and I told her about the offer, about me writing a children's book. And I said, "What the hell am I going to write about?" And she looked down and said, "Phoebe and Ito are dogs." And that was the first line of the children's book. And it took me about 45 minutes to write the whole thing. And the book was actually pretty good, but the whole experience of finding an artist and that whole thing just made me realize I'm not a children's book author. I don't want to align myself with an artist. Not that the one we ended up working with wasn't fine, but I just want the whole thing to be in my control.
Mm.
And so I wrote one children's book, and I have no plans, no desire to do it again.
Well, um, I find it interesting. You've been married over 50 years to the same woman. Uh, what? You got any advice? Or you just because you just didn't get divorced, or you're really a great couple?
Well, she's a really great woman with very low standards. Uh, I married out of my league. I can guarantee you that.
Well, I
Uh,
can tell you really appreciate her. And you've had over 45 books published. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. Well, do you have some things picked out to read for us?
Well, I do. I'm going to read three quick ones, and let me read all three, and then we could move on from there. This is from one of my very recent books called "Ain't Done Yet." Uh, Memory plays a big, important part of my writing. This is Get Oz was this little shot and beer joint our parents used to take us to when we were kids, me and my sister. I was maybe 5, and we'd sit with them at the end of the bar. And Mrs. Gedab would give us nickels that we'd put in the machine to get those red pistachios. And my father showed us how to tip the machine and turn the crank real slow to get the most out of it. And they'd sit and talk and drink. And I know it had to be the afternoon because I remember the light coming in from the street. And it was red because of the glass in the window. And so were our hands, red from the nuts. And they were probably drunk when we left because it was 1956, and that's what you did when you had a couple of bucks and a day off and no one there to watch the kids.
Uh,
This is from my book, People and Other Bad Ideas. It was published 3 years ago by Meat for Tea Press. The cover, if I could hold it up, is a picture of, right down here is an Albanian edition of one of my books. Interestingly, the Albanian publisher was in a restaurant talking with a photographer, and he happened to look over, and there at the next table was a woman sitting there with the book that he published, because he translated my work, with my book on the table, and it blew his mind. The photographer took a picture and sent it to me, and we used a crop of that picture in this book, People and Other Bad Ideas.
By any chance, was it the same Albanian publisher that published Jeff Weddle?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely. The um yeah, I think he's published 2 or 3 Jeff Weddle's books. The gentleman, the translator, publisher, Fadil Bajraj, he I'm proud to say he's translated books by Pound and Bukowski and Kerouac, Fitzgerald.
Mm.
And I guess when he turned his attention toward me, he had run out of real writers and was kind of scrounging around. But here's a poem from that book. Every man loves the smell of his own farts. Billings was different. His were so bad he had to get up and leave the room. That's probably why Billings never got married. It was horrible. No one stayed very long. Even his dog ran away twice, which was okay with Billings. He didn't mind being alone. He liked the quiet. You gave him time to think and listen to his music. No one liked his music either. Life for Billings was almost perfect, if he could only get used to the smell of his own farts.
Wow, that's a very aromatic poem.
uh, this is from my next to most recent book. This and my most recent book came out within 2 weeks of each other. This is called Seriously, with an exclamation point. When I was a kid and couldn't read yet, I used to ask my sister to read things to me. She was kind and patient and read everything that I asked her to read: cereal boxes, labels on cans, street signs, billboards, whatever there was to read. She used to read it. And finally, her patience wore thin, and I don't know how old I was at the time, but I'll soon be 75, and I remember it like it was yesterday. We're watching The Lone Ranger on TV, and the bad guys had the Lone Ranger tied up, and they lit a stick of dynamite and set it on top of a box that had letters on the side. And while I sort of knew what the box was and what it said, I still had to ask her to read it to me anyway. And she got mad as hell and said it was dynamite. And she was sick of reading absolutely everything for me and was never going to do it again. And she walked out of the room, and I yelled back at her, I don't care what you think. And as soon as I learn how to read, I'm going to read everything everywhere there ever was, and you're not going to stop me. And that was nearly 70 years ago. And my sister lives in Albuquerque now. And she kept her word. And damn it, so did I.
All right. Yeah, and writing everything. Do you like write every day a bunch or something, or write every day?
Okay, that's another. Hey, that's a pet peeve with me when I get asked questions by aspiring writers, uh, to give them a tip. I always tell them to try to write every day, do something every day. For those people that say they're waiting for inspiration or they have writer's block, I always felt, and I'll explain why, I always felt that was a bit of a crutch or an excuse for not getting down and doing the work. Like you never see a newspaper writer saying they have writer's block or they don't have anything to write about. They just get down and do the job. And that kind of attitude, way of looking at things goes back to me being the son of a coal miner. Everybody in our family just got up and went to work and didn't make a big deal about it. And even though I grew up to be a writer and not a coal miner, I still took my job, my responsibility very seriously. And I didn't want to be just hanging around waiting for something to happen. I wanted to come down here with all this neat stuff around me and make it happen. So yes, I try to write every day. Most of the time it's just crap and I throw it out, but I try to write something every day. That's another thing. I don't save anything. Um, yeah, I run into people who have stacks and stacks of things in progress. If it doesn't work out for me first time, second time at the most, I throw it out and try again the next day. So I don't save anything.
Would you pan your library the way you did before we started recording?
Sure.
Because I find it very interesting and beautiful, really. And you really are organized and thousands of publications. Well, that's only like half, but that's fine. They get the idea. We all get the idea.
Yep.
um,
It's four walls of floor to ceiling books. This is my place, my happy place.
did you have something else that you had set aside to read?
No.
Oh,
Um,
okay, that's fine.
when I talked about I, most writers, myself included, are very crappy readers. Uh, we're not actors, we're not performers. Um, Growing up, I remember, you know, Dylan Thomas was supposed to be a very great reader of his work. In fact, he even put out a couple of albums back in the day, back in the 50s, early 60s. There were still copies around. And I remember having one of those albums and I thought, holy shit, he's awful. And if he was supposed to be one of the better ones, I don't want to listen to poets reading their work. I've heard Ezra Pound reading, and he was awful. The only one who was really good at it, too, Bukowski was good.
Mm,
Bukowski was a great actor. The other one who was good for my money was Ginsberg.
mm, yeah.
So yeah, I'm not a good reader. Uh,
Well, I think it's mostly that people want to see the face and the mouth moving of the person that actually wrote the pieces.
that wrote the piece. Yeah,
Yeah, rather than judging on how they read, even though it enhances it if it's read well, I guess.
read well, but most of the people get that the dreaded poet voice. You know what
Oh,
I'm talking
yeah,
about?
yeah, okay.
That monotone, deep, uh, and that just gives me the creeps. In any case, this is my very newest book. I told you about Seriously. This is my newest book, and it's also 16 years old. This book came out. It's called Doing Cartwheels on Doomsday Afternoon. One of my favorite titles of my 40 some books. And it was published in Canada by Epic Rights Press in 2010. When COVID hit, ERP, Epic Rights Press, went out of business like so many small businesses did during COVID. And the book went out of print in 2020 or thereabouts. And earlier this year, I was contacted by an actress from California who is going to be, she asked permission to put on a stage show built around my book Doing Cartwheels on Doomsday Afternoon. And
Wow, great.
so that's going to be put on later this year in Hungary, of all places.
Hmm.
But happily, my current publisher, I asked him if he would kind of piggyback on that and do a new edition of this book. And it just came out about a week ago, and I'm really excited about it. It's funny when you're around long enough, things have a way of coming full circle. I I always liked the musician Captain Beefheart. I don't know if you know Captain Beefheart. Back in the 60s, Captain Beefheart and the Magic Band. Captain Beefheart's real name was Don Van Vliet. And his greatest album, which very few have heard, but which always makes all-time lists. And for my money, it's the only true Beatles fans could argue with me, but the only true rock and roll work of art. An album called Trout Mask Replica. And I wrote a book about Trout Mask Replica called Captain Beefheart Never Licked My Decals Off, Baby. And it's a book kind of about Trout Mask Replica, about that album, but it's also an excuse for me to talk about my approach to creativity. The book is also a bit of love letter to creativity, to staying the course, to sticking to a vision, no matter what people say and what they have to say about things. In any case, the book came out, and to help promote it, I was going on the various Captain Beefheart websites, and there's a ton of them, an absolute ton of them. And I was on one of the sites. Now, this album came out in 1968, a whole lifetime ago, 50, what is that, 58 years ago. And I was on one of the Captain Beefheart sites, and in the chat rooms or whatever you call them, and I was talking to this one guy, and this guy really knew a lot of background about the album. Long story short, he played slide guitar on that album back in 1968. And here he is talking to me about my book. The guy's name was Jeff Cotton. And he played guitar back in 1968 on that album. And he ended up complimenting me on my book about the album. And we kind of went back and forth and have started and maintained a bit of a friendship, so much so that he ended up writing the introduction for Ain't Done Yet.
Wow.
That was a real pinch me moment for this old former hippie, to have one of his heroes from back 50 some years ago writing the introduction to one of my books. And that really
Yeah.
meant a lot to me.
Yeah, that's special.
Okay, we're talking about, you asked me about reading, and I really didn't want and don't want to read anything, but I picked some books out, and this is my selected poems.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually selected poems, the director's cut.
Uh-huh.
And the story behind that, my my then publisher, Concrete Mist Press, he wanted to celebrate my then approaching 50 years as a publishing writer, and he wanted to do a 550 page edition of my work, the best of my poems, and 550 pages being the maximum format his printing would allow. And I told him, "You're nuts. Nobody wants to buy a 550 page book of poems. especially poems by me. I said, you're going to lose your shirt. So we fought literally for 2 months. And I talked him down to 380 some pages. And he brought out, oh, I don't have it right here in front of me. He brought out a reduced edition of that selected poems. And it went out to become his best-selling title to date.
Wow.
And he came back to me and said, John, I think we should restore the book and do the 550-page edition. I said, you're nuts. We already sold as many copies as we're going to do. If you bring out a bigger second edition, you're really going to lose your shirt because nobody else is going to buy it. We fought. We cut it, we enlarged it, but we didn't quite do the 550 pages. We did 482 pages. And the book came out, and to our surprise, it actually, for about a minute and a half, hit #1 on Amazon in poetry. And that shocked the both of us. I was so surprised I had my wife take a picture of the screen. So I've got that to prove that, I might not be pretty good, but at least for one day, for 1 hour, I was #1.
So you make some money off your poetry.
Some is the operative word.
Okay. Yeah, that's enough. Yeah.
And I run into writers who I'll say, who you're reading, and especially the younger ones. They'll say, oh, I don't read anybody. I don't want to, mess with my gift, and that's bullshit. I try to read as much as I can. #1, because I want to see what's going on. #2, because I want to keep up with the competition. And it's just neat to see what other people are doing. Currently, I'm really enthused about Pete Mladnick. If you know Pete Mladnick, I got 2 of his books here: The Whitestone Bridge and Maiden Rock. Pete's out of Hobbs, New Mexico, and he does a neat little podcast. If you don't have any books by Pete or don't know him, you should look him up.
Do you or have you taught creative writing? Or
No.
well,
No.
this has been almost like a mini class.
I never taught. I only went 1 semester to college. So after my first book came out, I thought I was going to be on, TV and rich and all that. So I dropped out of college, and I ended up working in shoe factories and factories mostly for most of my working career. And that was probably better for me than any college.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, I have enjoyed talking to you so much. Nice to finally meet you.
Yes, it's nice meeting you, and I love your bookshelf right behind you too.
Oh, well, thank you. And well, we'll see you out in the poetry world.
Okay, please do, and I hope your viewers there will take the time and pick up a couple of my books, not for me, but to support those small press publishers who lay it on the line every day for boneheads like me to keep me in print. And it's very important to support the arts.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.